welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
Hello, Christine.
Hi, Rose. How are you doing?
Doing good, actually. Yeah, doing great. Feeling calm, and I guess that's a great thing right now.
And you're still in San Diego?
Still in San Diego. Yep. Not a bad place to be quarantined. I'm in my little Airbnb and beautiful space. So it's nice to wake up to in the morning. I open my French doors and listen to the birds sing. The birds are crazy. Are you hearing that where you are? The birds sing at night. I have never heard that before.
Yeah. Maybe they're as confused as the rest of us. Well, and it's
good thinking.
Nice that I'm also on the West Coast these days, so we get to record in the same time zones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's March.
No, April.
Oh my goodness. April 1st, and it's still April Fool's Day in some time zones, but here we are. And of course, the coronavirus pandemic is front and foremost on everybody's or most people's minds, and certainly in the media. And we thought a good question for us to discuss today would be, has the coronavirus infected the oil industry? And if it has, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because of course, we know the link between the oil industry and climate change. All of those emissions have been destabilizing our global climate. Now, again, not just carbon dioxide coming out of our tailpipe. There's other emissions as well, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So I understand in the US, is it not true that the Trump administration is part of the bailout is for the oil industry?
It's definitely the airline industry. No, it says $3 billion bailout for oil producers dropped from the economic stimulus package. That was 2 days ago.
Wow.
We are working towards another bailout. So who knows? I mean, the shale oil industry, I had no idea. Well, you were talking about the Alberta tar sands and how
it's not shale. That's not shale oil, but
no. But you were talking about how it had the oil prices from the tar sands were so much lower than, I think we're right at $20 a barrel now.
And I think for there's a specific word for the oil sands oil, but they might be $2 or $3 a barrel, isn't it?
Wow.
And I can tell you for sure that the Alberta government just announced that it's going to hand over, it's more than $1 billion to the company that's building the Trans-Canada pipeline.
Oh.
Which Jason Kenney, the Premier of Alberta, who's a long time supporter of the oil industry, and I would say the status quo. He's not exactly embracing the clean energy economy of the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's claimed that it will provide 7,000 Alberta jobs. And I saw somebody tweet to him, so that is $1 million per job.
Right.
Whoa, what? And this is at the same time they still are cutting in the classroom. Of course, there's nobody in school right now, but they're building the system, cuts to education and healthcare. So interesting priorities, Mr. Kenney. And also the federal government in Canada, the Trudeau government, hasn't announced its bailout package, but Trudeau is definitely making noises about how our oil patch, which makes it sound so small, it's just a little patch, instead of the huge polluting industry that it is. Isn't it interesting, the language that they use, like
Mm.
a little patch on your pants? No, no, no. This is a huge polluting industry, and they're suffering, he's been quoted as saying. No bailout announced yet, but I expect it, although, wow, what I see is that a lot of Canadians are not having that. Now, our government has been very proactive and has announced measures to support small businesses and Canadians. I know you guys are all getting what, $1,200 check from your government, which, woohoo! Not, it's better than a kick in the pants, which is what they usually do to you.
Not much, because I think they're saying like $1,200 over, like it's a one-time payment.
I know.
So, yeah. So is that, and they're expecting now, well, they're talking more shut down through the beginning of May now. So it's 4 weeks out from here. I don't know. They're saying, I mean, it's basically $240 a week or something like, okay, really?
Not a big help. So our government is definitely being proactive and making it easier to get onto employment insurance, which is, we call it EI instead of unemployment insurance. So, but specifically, the federal government really seems to be keen on, or to be talking about, handing over money to the oil industry. And I mean, obviously, they have got lobbyists lobbying so hard.
Of course, yeah.
Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. But I see so many Canadians saying, yes, support the workers, do not support the industry. Like, in the 21st century, why would we be thinking that this is an industry that needs any more money? So,
because it's been business as usual. Because this is how it's operated for so long that, I mean, if anything, I see what the coronavirus is doing is it's illuminating. This is how it's been operating. What changes need to be made, right?
mm-hmm.
And the oil industry is huge. I mean, there's been essentially, as China started shutting down, this is my understanding of it, looking at the charts. As China started shutting down its factories, using less oil, prices started coming down, and there became like this. Saudi Arabia was trying to negotiate with Russia that they wanted to bring production.
Well, they always, OPEC, so the oil producing nations, which is OPEC, always try to act together.
Right.
And then
exactly.
Often Saudi Arabia goes its own way because
and so what they did was they upped production so that it trying to force Russia's hand, and now they've got this glut, and cars have stopped using it, airlines are stopping. It's like, so now there's this huge, and supply and demand. Well, the supply is so huge and the demand is so little that the price is just like plummeted.
So I have a paragraph here from a really good article in the Guardian newspaper that we'll post to, and it's about what is the outcome for the oil industry because of this COVID-19 pandemic. And it reads, the plunging demand for oil wrought by the coronavirus pandemic combined with the savage price war, that's what you're talking about, left the fossil fuel industry broken and in survival mode, according to analysts. It faces the gravest challenge in its 100-year history, they say, one that will permanently alter the industry. With some calling the scene a hellscape, the least lurid description is unprecedented. So, I mean, I guess maybe the question shouldn't be, has the coronavirus infected the oil industry, but how badly, how sick is the oil industry from the pandemic, and also that's price war. Interesting timing, because of course they couldn't have predicted the pandemic, but it's sort of like how to create the most havoc and the most pain for the oil industry. It's
right. You couldn't have planned this better to change dramatically, right? Change the oil and gas industry. I mean, it's like, but the question is, will this be permanent? And what analysts are saying, according to the article that you're quoting from, is that they think it's going to permanently alter it and alter the industry. And so that will allow the atmosphere to heal, and then political will, then the will of the people just, I mean, it becomes a no-brainer. Because for all this time we've been told that, well, this could never happen because it would wreak havoc on the economy and it would wreak havoc on jobs. And well, okay, here we are. It's happening.
I mean, it is wreaking havoc, not the shift to clean energy, but the pandemic, and people are being hurt. Again, we don't want to minimize that, but right now we're talking specifically about the oil industry, which has been sucking at the teat of public welfare. We have been giving handout after handout.
Oh, the industry's been so subsidized. If those subsidies stop, the subsidies that we've been giving the oil industry can go to the people and help people retrain. Yes, there's going to be a lot of people in that sector that need help to be able to eat and pay their rent and, find new jobs and all that kind of stuff, retrain. But can those monies going directly to the bottom line of the fossil fuel companies, if those monies are redirected, how does the whole picture change?
Well, and even now with people being forced to work from home and to conference from home, and as we were talking about, I just had a 5-day online workshop that was scheduled to be in Ohio. I was scheduled to travel, and instead it went online, and it was an amazing experience. I have to give Zoom credit. I couldn't believe the bandwidth, and the reception was so good for 8 hours for 5 days, with people from all over the US and me up here in Canada. It was amazing. And even today we're connecting on Zoom as we usually do, and it's great. So are people going to choose maybe not to travel as much, not to fly as much? And so that has long-term implications. There's a quote here that I love from this article, which I'm just going to read a little bit of the backstory. So the oil price plunge, it writes, has also demolished the lucrative returns on exploration projects to which investors have been accustomed. This threatens what has been called the golden dividend era of the last 2 decades, which has made oil stocks the mainstays of people's portfolios. Now I'm just ad-libbing a bit. So it's a very, very ugly picture, an economic analyst said. At $35 per barrel, and now it's lower, 75% of projects don't even cover the cost of capital. But I love this quote. The oil and gas sector is already a very much unloved sector by investors. And in this kind of oil price environment, it becomes low return, high risk, and high carbon, not a very attractive proposition. So we've talked before about investing in green and clean tech. And here, the people who did that, and we haven't had money in oil and gas for over a decade. When I say we, my husband and I, in our stocks. And so it turns out that was a good investment not to be invested in oil and gas. And
right now, yeah.
well, but to have seen it coming. I don't know if you have any money in Tesla.
I don't, but I've heard that their stock's gone through the roof in the last few days.
Well, so it went down, but it never dropped as far as a lot of the other ones. And now it's holding its own. I'm still in the green.
Okay.
That's left.
So you're a big proponent, and about I know a thimbleful in comparison to what you know. So where does carbon tax come in now?
Oh, interesting that you should say that, because I was on Twitter on my personal account earlier this morning, and so conservative politicians in Canada, and it's called the Conservative Party here, have had a hate on for the carbon tax for forever.
Sure,
which is
because they're probably all invested in the fossil fuel industry.
Well,
I mean, their portfolios. That's what they're portfolios look like. So
for sure, invested, financially, and I would say emotionally, but they just can't cut that tie. And it's interesting that they're so opposed because, in fact, the carbon tax is a very market-friendly mechanism to monitor pollution, because you just put a price on something that's polluting, that we're all paying the price for, whether it's destabilized weather patterns, whether it's in cleanup after abandoned oil wells. I mean, there's so much
oil spills, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Cost, and so you just put a price on something that we're all paying for and let the market decide. But that's a bit of a tangent why conservative politicians don't like a market mechanism. I'm not sure. Maybe that they like to play favorites in the market. But so now what's happening is on April 1st, today, in Canada, our federal carbon tax is increasing by, I don't even know how much. I'll have to find out a little bit. And so basically it'll make maybe 1 cent per liter. We use liters of gas here, not gallons. I think it's, I don't know, American gallon, because American gallons, believe it or not, are different than Canadian gallons in size.
Oh my God.
So anyways, but maybe 3 cents a gallon. That's just
because I can't even do the calculation anyway. And so yeah.
So a cent a liter here, maybe, if that, and we all get a rebate. So it's not actually a tax. It is a fee and dividend. So we pay the fee when we fill up our cars at the gas station. We all get a rebate on our income tax. Every Canadian has to do income tax. And so if you pay more, a cent more per liter at the gas tank, next year you will get a bigger rebate check, because there's been more collected. It's to incentivize not filling up your gas tank as much, right? Biking or walking or using public transportation. And this is so on Twitter, this conservative MP was saying, how dare, Justin Trudeau impose a carbon tax on Canadians in the middle of a pandemic, when of course oil prices, I don't know about in the US, but they plunged here.
Oh yeah, no, we're seeing gas prices just at the pump just go. Yeah, they're saying. Well, I think even Trump last night said he's talking about it as the biggest tax relief that Americans had and whatever, because we're going to be able to fill up their tanks for less than $1 a gallon. Well, hello, we can't have anywhere right now, so that's not happening. But
not so helpful. Well, and I actually responded to her and I said, you clearly don't understand the difference between a tax and a fee and rebate. A tax is something that goes into the government coffers and then the government spends it. This is a dividend. All Canadians are getting dividends back, and some of us really like to get that money back. Thank you very much. So, that's my little rant about the carbon tax / fee and dividend that we're doing in Canada. I'm very happy that our federal government is doing that. Should we be doing more?
Well, so that brings us around to, so is this the time? I mean, so I think California and Canada had some kind of deal that was going on about a carbon tax.
No, sorry, I know. So that is California and Ontario and Quebec.
Okay.
And it wasn't a carbon tax. It was cap and trade.
Oh, cap and trade. Okay.
Cap and trade. But when we got our Premier Ford, of the Conservative Party, he backed out of the cap and trade agreement. He backed the whole province out. So I'm not sure what Quebec and California are doing. But as a consequence, because we're not participating in carbon pricing scheme, we then, as Ontarians, pay a penalty from the federal government provincially. Basically, what the feds have said is all provinces need to have a carbon pricing scheme. We don't care what it is, just have one. And so by backing out of it, the Ford government has cost the provincial coffers money.
Mm.
He decided to sue the federal government at the price of $30 million of our taxpayer money to
Nice.
but Canadians, individual Ontarians, still get the rebate from the feds. So it's not hurting us individually. It's a bad decision for a government to make, but it's ideological. It's clearly not made on fiscal responsible lines. So where are we? Have we decided that there's a virus in the oil industry, or the coronavirus is affecting the oil industry?
I would say so. So it's interesting to see. So we were talking at the beginning about the price war that's going on, and how will the Saudis be affected by it? How will Russia be affected by it? How will their economies be affected by it? Way back in the day, this is kind of off the subject, but way back in the day, I had crossed an about Exxon. They had all these futures in Russia, so of oil that was futures, or land that they knew that there was oil on, and the value of that, if they can't extricate it, will go to zero. And how will that affect Exxon overall? So yes, this is sending a lot of industries tumbling, but it seems like the oil industry, the petroleum industry in general, I don't know that they can recover from this. And is that a good thing for the rest of us? Is that a good thing for the atmosphere?
And I would say that they will not recover unless our governments prop them up. And so that's where we really, you and me and all of our listeners, need to be contacting our, well, in my case, it's member of parliament. In your case, it's representative, and say, absolutely.
You don't bail them out. No.
And it has to be, if you're going to have a bailout, let's make it be a green bailout. And we can put up some links for people who are talking what a green bailout might look like, and basically insisting that it's tied to clean energy and those kind of subsidies. And we finished our talk about the carbon tax before I could rant just about subsidies.
Get all those rants out. Get all those rants out.
Stop subsidizing the buggers.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's a subject for next time. In terms of like, what does a green bailout look like?
Okay.
Yeah. So what's the good news? The good news is that the oil industry is going down. And again, I'm not saying that that we're not sympathetic to those oil workers who are in the field, and we need to be able to support the workers. But we knew for a very long time that we couldn't be emitting fossil fuel emissions just couldn't continue at the rate that they were. So that's the good news. That's shutting down. And we need to be able to support those workers, to retool, to retrain, to whatever they need to do to find new jobs, to move into clean energy, or some other industry that feeds them, that helps them. There's more purposeful. But yeah, we're just in the midst of it.
Well, I wonder if we should let our friend Paul Gilding have the last word. I'm saying that with tongue in cheek. Of course, we don't know Paul Gilding.
We don't know Paul Gilding.
But
he isn't our friend, but we wish he were.
Yes, but we do follow him, and I've read his book, The Great Disruption: Why the Climate Crisis Will Bring on the End of Shopping and the Birth of a New World. He wrote that in 2011. But he just shared a new blog, and it's called 2020, When the Great Disruption Began. And the subtitle is When COVID-19 Will Transform the Global Economy. So
yeah, we'll link that, and we'll provide the link to that. And yeah.
So he goes on to say, we can no longer prevent the COVID-19 crisis. We can only manage it aggressively to reduce suffering, loss of life, and economic impact. However, we can still learn the lessons being thrust in our faces and drive the change needed to prevent future crises. Climate change is still coming at us hard and fast. We can reduce the inequality, which will make future crises worse and harder to manage. We can recognize the benefit of our actions and the economy being guided by science and expertise rather than ideology. And we can recognize that market economics is a useful tool, but not an ideology nor a way to run our lives. Therefore, strong and competent government is central to human progress. The future, I'm skipping ahead, the future is still ours to make, right?
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It is. We can use this time to envision what we want the future to look like. As Charles Eisenstein would said, the future the world that our hearts know is possible.
Wonderful. So is that our good news?
That's our good news.
We're still able to shape the future. And I would encourage all of our listeners and myself and Rose, because I have been in a little bit of an alternate universe for the last 5 days with my healing workshop, to contact our representatives and just say that we're watching, and we are watching them make a choice for a green and clean shift, and not to prop up any old and dirty and dying industries. So we can put some links. I have some Canadian links, the petitions that I've signed, and ways to contact our governments. There probably is the same.
Yes, undoubtedly there is the same in the US, and I'll look for some of those links and provide them as well.
So that's our action tip. And as for a sanity tip, I think I'm finding humor hugely helpful.
Yes, I shared a meme just yesterday. Humor is great. I shared a meme yesterday, and it was 30 days has September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, except March, which has 8,000.
So let's share a couple of things that have made us laugh, and invite any listeners to share what they're laughing at these days. And we'll touch base again next week.
Sounds great. Thanks for listening. That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me.